Today on the Crit House 3 series, we are joined by Michael Hintlian, one of the quietly essential voices in contemporary documentary and street photography. Hintlian works in long, sustained projects, returning again and again to the same places. His photographs are not constructed or symbolic, they are precise acts of attention, of knowing when exactly to press the shutter. From years documenting life in post-Soviet Armenia and Azerbaijan to his landmark work on Boston's Big Dig, Hintlian finds significance in ordinary moments, unexceptional days. Or as he puts it, in photography, the thing itself is everything. In this episode, 3 images from Michael Hintlian open onto a practice defined by patience, commitment, and a deep belief in the power of looking. Now, you've chosen 3 images. One of them is something from early on, which we're going to call the aha moment, that image when you just started off that made you think, oh, this photography thing's pretty cool. The second image is the big one, something that's representative of your career, a big image, or maybe one of the greats that you've taken. And then the third image is something that is exciting you right now. But we'll start off talking about your first image, which is a big old fish.
I had a summer job as working in a camera store, 17 years old, 16 years old, and I had an old Leica that I had, and I had just bought a new lens for it from the proprietor of the store I worked at. It was a camera store. My lunch breaks were all about, going out and making some pictures. So I think with this camera and this lens, this was like the second or third roll of film that I shot. And, there was a commotion. I saw this huge fish and people posing next to it. And this woman stood up, stepped forward, and she was like giggling and just in this kind of reverie around the fish. And, and I made this vertical picture. And it stuck with me. I mean, I thought about that picture for decades. And it wasn't so much an aha picture, but it was what the camera could do, that I could go into the world and secure something on film and get a result. At that time, I hadn't started art school yet. I was barely out of high school. It was an important picture because it was me being serious about photography at an early point.
Well, let's go to your second image, and this one is from a project that you're known for here in the Boston area on the Big Dig, which resulted in a book and is one of my favorite projects. Tell us about this image. It's this beam of light coming on and shining on this gentleman.
Of course, we're fast forwarding like a couple of decades. So a lot of things have happened, and I did a lot of work. In fact, when the Big Dig started, I was just coming off of working for 7, 8, 9 years in several of the former Soviet republics and, the fall of the Iron Curtain, and, very actively trying to peddle stories out of that as a photojournalist. And I was burnt out. I really felt that what had me interested in photography was being lost in this pursuit of picture stories and so on, which valuable lessons for me, all valuable.
Yeah.
I felt that I was suffering from a certain editorial hangover, editorial mindset hangover, and I needed to undo that or leave photography because it just wasn't satisfying. So the Big Dig project came along, and I used it as a laboratory.
So let me interrupt you and just give some context to the viewers who may not know what the Big Dig is. In Boston, there was a roadway that was elevated that slashed through the middle of the city, and the Big Dig was a project to take that elevated roadway and tunnel under the ground. Huge project because all the infrastructure that crossed over needed to be moved, and the whole city needed to be dug up for a very long period of time. It cost billions of dollars and significantly over over the budget as well. So it was a huge project for the city, and it's changed the
Yeah.
face of Boston as well. So
It,
so anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought some
no,
context would
no,
be
it's
helpful.
fine. I saw it as the next place to take the work. I mean, it was just, one day I was down by the aquarium and I saw all of these like mountains of Jersey barriers being arranged. And meanwhile, the artery is still up there. The artery is
Yep.
that roadway that you were just talking about, Jeff. It was a really great laboratory because I really needed a place where I could break myself up and start over and see if I could return to something very core in my curiosity with the medium. That's what the project was about for me. And I accepted no commercial work, no paid assignments. I mean, I did sell some pictures from it, but I didn't take any assignments that might have influenced, how I had to work.
How did
That
you get
makes sense.
access for it?
Oh, I never got access.
Well,
In a formal way.
You were in. So you just went into the space without permission?
Yeah. So
Wow.
the story is like really simple. I mean, I saw that it was starting. I said, "What do I need?" So I went to an industrial supply place in Everett and bought a hard hat and a safety vest.
You
And
dressed the part.
Yeah. So I mean, I figured I would, just put, get a safety vest and a hard hat, and I could walk into the sites. And I mean, it was a little bit more calculated than that. I mean, I did go in very early in the morning, when I knew that crews would be moving in and out. And, I would stash my car someplace and just kind of go in. And I would work generally for a couple of hours before I got thrown out. So from about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning till 8, when the supervisor were now out of their meeting and were now on site, they're, like, who's this guy? What's up with the camera? Well, you know how close those work sites were, that they were, just a block or two apart, and you could go into a whole different world. So I got thrown out 2 times a day, sometimes 3. And only arrested once by the MBTA police. So that's kind of a story. But
well, tell us about this specific image. So how you chose out of all of the images you captured this one. What is it about this one that brought you to that point?
It needs to be said that I shot over 4,000 rolls of film over the 7 years. So that lots and lots of pictures, lots of work prints. It was several years into the project, but I was becoming curious about odd things that were happening. Like this guy was doing something really kind of not important, but back and forth. And every time he went by this shaft of light, his head glowed, so I was kind of seeing like the film was seeing. And it became this kind of magical, glowing man kind of thing. And it surprised me, but I loved seeing it. I loved playing with it and realizing that amount of curiosity had been restored, that I hadn't totally burnt myself out doing other things. It may not be a great picture in the minds of photo critics, but to me, it's an important picture because of what it represented, more in terms of a restoration of curiosity.
Well, like I say, it's a lovely book. It's one of my favorite books, and I should have brought it down to be able to show it. But it's
Thanks, Jeff.
It's beautiful. It's well done, and I am proud to be somebody who has it in my bookshelf. So let's now move on to the current world of Michael Hintlian. You spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, and this image, I assume, is from there. Tell us about this, and tell us why you shoot in Los Angeles as well, because you're here on the East Coast, and you have a beautiful city to be able to work in, but Los Angeles draws you.
Well, I shoot in both places. Boston is a tougher place to shoot, I think, for a couple of reasons. There's not as many sunny days. The availability of activity is tough to nail down. I mean, there are certain things that are predictable and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But, I still shoot here. I'll shoot there tomorrow if it's sunny, or Saturday. So I'm always working in Boston, but it's a hard place to work. I started photographing in Los Angeles seriously sometime after the Big Dig book came out, which was 2004. So for the last 18 years or so, I have been to some extent working in California to some part of the summer. Recent years, since the pandemic and just before the pandemic, I've been spending the whole summer photographing in Southern California and Las Vegas. So I'm in the desert a little bit. I'm in Las Vegas, and these are places where it just works for me because there's so much activity and
Yeah.
visual excitement. So that's basically it. So in many ways, I've returned to that younger version of me, who was a boy who, on his lunch break from the camera store was, dashing around trying to make pictures. And Jeff, I worked hard on the Big Dig project. I worked hard everywhere I've worked, but I've never worked harder than I'm working in the last 5, 6, 7 years. But it's exciting to me. So
Talk about this image and why this one of the images you've captured is the one that is holding you for the moment.
it was a day when I had worked hard all day. I remember in the afternoon it was very hot. And, it was one of those Los Angeles days where the temperature in summer, approached 100 degrees. I was kind of spent. So I was looking for a place to go get a Coke and absorb some air conditioning. And I come around a corner and there's this thing happening. And what I realized, it was a photo shoot for some model, and I still can't figure out what the model was about, but it was glamour. And to me, it was about the idea of this place. This was right in the middle of Hollywood. It had a certain something to it, but also visually how the picture came together. I mean, all the elements seemed to work, and I just said yes and made the picture. So I think I made 3 frames and that was it.
Well, so here's my question for you. This is what you're excited about right now, and I know you have been working there for a long period of time,
Mm.
and every once in a while we'll have a quick conversation, and you say, "I've got X number of rolls of film, and I'm processing it. I got stacks of images this big. What's going on with that?" Because I want to see what the show is, or the book is, or like what's
Mhm.
happening with the work that you're doing.
Yeah, me too. The way I work is I shoot a lot, and there's a distillation over over time where I get through the contact sheets and I make, probably 1,200 work prints every year from this particular body of work. So I have like probably 7 or 8,000 work prints that I've got through, and I've got it down to something under 70 images that I am now wrestling with to sequence and to have it work as a body of work. So it's very different. It's not, I mean, the Big Dig work, for example, that book, I was very, I actually insisted that it not be a chronological
Hmm.
sequence, that, it not follow some, boring logic of, like what we started here and we ended up here. No. I spent some time with Chris Killip. Do you know Chris? Chris's
Sure.
work?
Yeah. English photographer. Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he, rest in peace. He was at Harvard at that time. And I approached him and we spent several days going through all the pictures, and he was very helpful. He was the one that turned me on to the idea that maybe I need to create more mystery. Maybe I need to make it work with the pictures rather than with the logic of the pictures rather than, some chronological nonsense. I don't have a publisher. I'm looking at that, but I have time. I want this to be crisp to present to a possible publisher. Publisher doesn't know what to do with a box of pictures, Jeff. They
Yeah.
just don't. So it's up to the photographer to show how he or she sees the work being used. It's as simple as that.
Of all the things you've talked about so far, you haven't, and maybe you don't have this yet, but you haven't said what it's about.
Mm, I can say that. I can say what it's about. It's about how we're living. It's a look at what life in the United States looks like. I mean, there's a lot of things about Southern California. It's a tastemaker for the world.
Representative,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it does present, music and the movie business and so on it does project out there. But then there's the people that come to just see that, from wherever they come from. Me from Massachusetts and somebody
Right,
else from
right.
Iowa. It's hard to know when you set out on following your curiosity around a particular subject or a project. It's hard to know what it really means to you
Yep.
until you begin to look at the pictures. That's where the answers are, always.
The last question that I ask as a part of this 3 conversation is for you, my guest, to recommend an image that our viewers might be interested in hearing the story about. So is there an image from a photographer that comes to mind that means something to you that would be interesting to talk about in this program?
The very first picture I think of is the the Joseph Kudelka photograph of the rockets in Spain. It's such a wonderful. I mean, I remember seeing that picture and it was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So what you should do is phone up Joseph and get him on the phone and tell him that, you tell him I told you so.
Can I drop your name? Would that help?
He'll hang up.
Well, it is an amazing image, and I appreciate the recommendation and the thought, and I'm happy to have to show it to the folks who are watching as well. Michael Hintlian, thanks for coming back on the Crit House. Thanks for talking about your 3 images. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to learn from you as well.